Hi everyone. I'm Jake. I'm the moderator for Civil Group B. It's Geotechnical and Environmental Engineering. I'm a fifth-year civil engineering student, president of the Civil and Environmental Engineering Student Society, and yeah, that's pretty much all about me. So I'm just gonna start off with a couple things here. So make sure that if you join in, you're muted, and you can ask any questions you want in the chat. We'll get to them later. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple system here. So I'll just go ahead and ask the panelists to introduce themselves. So starting with Saadiq, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
So my name is Saadiq Sumar. I don't know how much you want for it.
Introduce yourself and tell us about your U of A experience and describe your current job.
Okay. Yeah. So, my experience at U of A. So I was a traditional student, but I did do a little bit of a victory lap. So I did a little bit of a fifth year because I did some work during my time at U of A. I worked in residence as a floor coordinator or a resident assistant or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I was in the civil environmental program with my good buddy Zion. I think he was in the co-op program, but we finished at the same time, so that was exciting. Graduated in 2012 and then spent an additional year at the U of A working for the Students' Union as the Vice President Student Life of VSU. So lots of really interesting stuff with that, and I'm sure I can chat more about that later, but don't want to go into too much detail. The work I'm doing right now, I work for ATCO Gas and Pipelines. I work in their pipeline integrity projects group on a weld program where we're finding it's really complicated, but basically we're just doing reinspection of a number of welds in our system. So that's the current job that I have, and I'll turn it back over to Jake. Hopefully I didn't miss anything.
That sounded great. Thank you. Jenny, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny Hong. I graduated from University of Alberta Environmental Engineering Co-op program in 2005, which makes me no longer a young alumni. I think I had a pretty fruitful and fun time back then. Some of the extracurricular activities I did included the Great Northern Concrete Toboggan Race, which is very serious, as you know, not at all. So and some of the other things that I was involved with was, I remember being in the Western engineering competition. I don't know if that's still put on by different universities, but there's different categories like explanatory communication, there's like some design thing, there's like different categories that you compete in, and so that was something I was involved with that I really enjoyed. And I remember I did like a presentation on explaining UV disinfection, and I think I won like second or something. And so these extracurricular activities were a good time, and for meeting people, for networking, and also had a core group of female friends from environmental engineering, and those friendships have lasted to, I mean, now it's like going on almost 20 years since the first time I've met them. And so I had a really great time at University of Alberta. My most recent position right now is in services with the City of Edmonton, and I work on strategy implementation and change management. And so it means, you know, right after a big, you know, public policy or strategy is done, how do you take it to implementation? You know, strategy sometimes is easier to do, and once it's finished, how do we get it to actual tangible results? And my portfolio of work is related to civic buildings, corporate facilities, major outdoor attractions. How do we do the 3-stream waste separation program, education, capacity building, to lead by example in the kind of industrial, institutional, commercial kind of building sector realm, so that in the future we are better poised to roll out policies and bylaws for the larger community. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Thank you. And I know it's a few years late, but congratulations on getting second there. So Zion, you're up next.
Sure, thanks, Jake. Yeah, like Saadiq said, I was at U of A with him doing environmental engineering. I actually did the traditional program, and I actually take a lot of pride in, or actually I don't take pride in it, but I was really motivated during my undergrad to just get through it as fast as I could. That was really all I was concerned about, and I just wanted to get out there and start working. When I graduated, I started working at Thurber Engineering, which is actually still my current employer. So I'm getting close to 9.5 years working there. So during my time working there, I actually got an opportunity to go back to school, and I did my Master of Engineering degree in Geoenvironmental Engineering back in 2017, and I finished it in 2019. So so I've seen quite a bit of U of A. As much as I tried to get out of there and disappear into the workforce, I found my way back, and yeah, I think I had a lot of positive experiences at U of A, and especially in the engineering program, and met a lot of great people, Saadiq included, and yeah, I think my job now, I guess if I had to describe it, it would be more project management than as much engineering as I anticipated when I first graduated. So a lot of what I do is managing a portfolio of projects for municipal, commercial, and oil and gas clients, where they're looking for environmental professionals to help them with, in one aspect or another, whether it's for development or for compliance with the regulators, operating approvals, things like that. So so it's quite relatively diverse, and it's given me the opportunity to see a lot of northern Alberta, a lot of parts that I don't think I otherwise would have seen. But I think it's been a great opportunity for me and a great way to apply my degree. So back to you, Jake.
Sarah, I have you up next on my list.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I did my undergrad at the U of A in civil environmental engineering, and I did the co-op program. And from my co-op, I got my job with Northwest Hydraulic Consultants, or NHC. I stayed with them for 2 years, and then I went and got a master's in applied science at Waterloo, and then I came back, and I'm with them again. My U of A experience was good. I'll echo Jenny's thing of making lifelong friends. That was really great. A lot of networking opportunities. A lot of professors really pushed me to get a master's degree, so I don't think it's something I would have considered otherwise. I think my one thing would be that I wasn't really involved, and I kind of regret not being more involved with like club work and all that kind of stuff. And then my job now, so I'm a water resources engineer, so I kind of toe the line between civil and environmental, and I do a lot of hydrology, so water quantity, as well as some hydrologic modeling and hydraulic modeling. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Very cool. And last but not least, Amelia.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I graduated from U of A only a couple of years ago from the civil engineering program with a specialty in water resources and geotechnical engineering. I did co-op, so I realize now I worked with Sarah and Saadiq for a little while. But yeah, so I had an opportunity to do a bunch of different things through my co-op. I tried project management, and I tried consulting, and then I tried construction, and so I've had a few different things to try. One thing I regret, for my first couple of years of engineering, I was very focused on school, yet kind of trying to get through it and just kind of go home and do my own thing. And then in my third year, I joined the concrete toboggan team, doing CTR, and I made lifelong friends. I honestly don't know how I made it through my capstones. Like they made everything a blast. So I would definitely say get involved and try things that you wouldn't normally think you'd like. I had no interest in concrete, and I didn't really have an interest in tobogganing, but tried it out and loved it. I worked at CNRL, the Albion Sands mine, for probably about 8 months after I graduated, and now I work in Edmonton for TETRATECH as a geotechnical engineer. So that's mostly slope stability and geotechnical investigation, some design work for some structural components, and then a lot of dam design. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll ask everyone the same question here, but starting with Saadiq, how did your time at U of A prepare you for your engineering career, do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I think, and one thing I kind of tried to highlight when I was asked for a few things that students should know is that one thing that I think engineering, the engineering program does really, really well is that it allows people not necessarily to learn just about engineering and those types of skills, those technical skills, but it also kind of, on a broader perspective, lets you do a lot of problem solving. And I think that's a major thing that you kind of carry forward wherever you go, is that to me, engineering is a lot about, you have a problem and going about different ways to fix it. There's tons of different ways to do that, but or tons of different solutions, but it's just about finding the best possible solution to the problem that's in front of you. So in terms of that's one thing. The other thing too is a lot of kind of what some of the other people have said in terms of friendships, but allowing yourself to participate in different clubs and different groups, whether they're engineering or non-engineering related, provides you with a reasonably good network. And I'm not sure about the other panelists, but when I came out of school, I hadn't started applying for anything. I was actually running for another student position, but that was unsuccessful. So in a really short span of time, I actually managed to wrangle a few different job offers, all from my network, because my GPA was not the best. I didn't spend enough time doing schoolwork, but yeah, I think those are two really critical pieces that you kind of take from your experience at U of A, and hopefully you can carry that forward into your professional life. So, yeah.
And Jenny, would you share with us how your time at U of A prepared you for your engineering career?
I think with an undergrad degree, and even sometimes with like a MEng, or in my case, a Master in Public Health, it's still a very general degree. You get a bit of information about everything, about water treatment, wastewater treatment, soil remediation, lots of math. But at the end of the day, again, it's just you're figuring out how to do problem solving. I think I got a lot more from some of my co-op work terms, because when you're a student, you just think about getting to the right answer. A lot of it might be a bit isolating, and you do a lot of the work by yourself. May it be a paper or some analysis or labs. But in the real world, there's like a lot more collaboration. And in the real world, the data is not very complete at all. And so you're learning how to really document your assumptions, document your techniques, document your scenarios, and then do interpretation and recommendations to the best of your abilities. And those are some of those hard lessons that I had early on in co-op, like when I worked at ATCO or Town of Hinton. They don't care about your answers. Like, they do care about your answers, but they are way more wanting to know how you derive those answers and recommendations. So that's what I got early on in my co-op work term and schooling.
Cool. And Zion, if you could enlighten me about how your time at the U of A prepared you for your engineering career.
Sure, Jake. Actually, I'd love to build on, kind of what Saadiq and both Jenny said. I think the experience at U of A, like going through the degree, I ended up getting a lot of confidence in my ability to learn something. I think my grades would say otherwise, but I think I would argue that like a lot of the skills that I did gain from university, especially my undergrad, was just where to look for things, how to ask good questions, how to collaborate, how to study. I learned a lot about my own preferences, I guess, or ways that I best absorb knowledge. And so when I got out into the workforce, I think Jenny's exactly right. I think the information that you get on projects that you're working on assessments that you're doing, it's so incomplete. And I feel that is part of the big learning that you get from university, was that everything is kind of incomplete, and it's up to you to span that gap. And so an analogy that I like to use, that I think I've used it before in a different channel, but it's like when you graduate, you get this puzzle, and you have 6 pieces in your hand, but it's a puzzle of like 5,000 pieces. And the university and your degree, what it teaches you is just how to find those other pieces. And I found that going into the workforce, I wasn't as intimidated by not knowing everything and not having all of the formulas or the solutions or whatever it was to get to where you're going. But you have the skills and confidence from having that degree to be able to, find what you need and learn what you need to know in order to get to, your end goal, whatever it is for your job. So yeah, I think my experience at U of A or the degree, it prepared me by just giving me those skills and giving me that confidence to be able to find out the things that I don't know, and kind of acknowledging the fact that you don't know a lot of things.
Cool. And Sarah, what would your comments be?
I think there's been a lot of really good things said already, but I would build on this idea of like learning how to problem solve. I feel like high school was really focused on like memorization and then regurgitation. Like, can you use the formula the way you were taught to use the formula? Can you memorize facts? And then when you get into undergrad, it's like a huge shift in how you have to learn and how you have to problem solve, because it's no longer just straight regurgitation. You have to actually understand the underlying formulas and then figure out how to apply it in a slightly different situation. So that sort of thinking is really what's helped me in my career, because like everyone said, like you don't have all the answers. It's not like, here's the formula and you're only missing one thing in the formula. Can you rearrange and get what's missing? It's like everything's missing. Everything's an assumption, especially in hydrology. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but it's just basically voodoo. And so it's nice to be able to like have that problem solving skill to like rationale and be like, okay, what I know, does this make sense? Can I like reality check this with some even like soft qualitative information from like the farmer says that the creek only floods once every 10 years. So if my 10-year return period doesn't have it flooding the banks, then maybe there's something wrong with my formula. And then the other thing was for co-op, really helped me with networking and learning how to do interviews, actually getting jobs. And like I was super shy, so it like forced me to interact with humans. So that was all good things that happened.
And Amelia.
Yeah, you guys all said really, really good things. And I agree very much with the problem solving aspect of it. Because when you get into industry, people aren't going to babysit you either. They're going to tell you that we have this problem, we need a solution. This is what we have, now figure it out, kind of thing. And of course, there'll always be the people who are there to help and who you can bounce ideas off of, but they're never going to hold your hand and walk you through the problem. And yeah, I definitely found that out through co-op and through all of my schooling at U of A. Also at U of A, I definitely learned how to practice time management. When you're working with projects, you really need to budget your time and to prioritize and put kind of what's most important and what needs to be done now at the top of your list, and kind of ask for help if there's no way that you can finish it in time, kind of thing, because people are there to help, and yeah, you just need to ask for it. So that's kind of what I learned from school.
Thank you. And the last of the 3 questions here is, if you could go back and change one thing about your personal journey at the U of A, what would that be? Saadiq, you go first.
So one thing I kind of mentioned this in the previous response. I think I did a little bit too much in terms of the extracurricular non-academic activities at the U of A. I sort of I don't want to say my high school experience was sheltered, but I just kind of let loose and I just did a lot of different things. And unfortunately, that meant that didn't leave enough time for things like school and actually, learning the important information for the different academic classes and things like that. So honestly, one thing that I would go back and do is actually probably do focus a little bit more on academics. I think one thing that to me this is a misconception, and maybe the panelists will disagree with this particular comment, is a lot of times you hear it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I think it's a very important combination and balance of those two aspects. I think it's who you know, but it's also what you know. And as an example of that, I would say that my sister-in-law, she graduated from a different university. She had excellent grades, but her personal kind of experience or her social life was not as maybe as fleshed out, or she didn't enjoy herself as much. But when she finished school, she landed her dream job working at a diamond mine. So I mean, I've enjoyed my career so far, but I think it's a combination of academics and networking coming out of school. So yeah, more focus on academics, but that's just me.
Interesting take. How would you, if you could go back and change one thing about your personal journey at the U of A, what would that be?
There's not a lot of things I would change. I feel like I really squeezed the crap out of the experience. But that said, I think I could have done a few more extracurricular and maybe not as much affiliated with the engineering ones, but there's such a myriad of groups and volunteer opportunities across campus. And again, building on what Saadiq said, build your network, because lots of engineers end up not doing technical jobs. And I would say amongst this panel, I'm not at a very technical job at all. It's everything I do is related to interpersonal collaboration and bringing people on board to do a big change process. So you might find that you don't want to work in a traditional design job, and that's okay. And your undergrad is still very, very valuable in problem solving and in thinking things through. So I would say, yeah. And another thing would probably be I got the travel bug a bit later in life. And maybe I would have checked out a few more student exchanges or travel opportunities when I was an undergrad.
Thank you. Zion?
Thanks, Jake. I think, again, Saadiq and Jenny are kind of hitting points that kind of resonate with me. My experience in undergrad was similar to Saadiq in that I just absolutely did not spend enough time on my assignments or studying, and yeah, I think my grades probably reflected that. Although, what I did choose to spend my time with was just hanging out with my friends and things outside of school. While that was great and that really was a great experience, and that part of it I really wouldn't change. I think if I could go back and try to invest my time in some way that would have the greatest returns, would be trying to focus that on, honing some of my soft skills or honing some of the non-technical skills that might be helpful, or that would be quite helpful in my role now, dealing with stakeholders and dealing with contractors and all the things that you don't really learn in the classroom, that aren't the technical knowledge that you would imagine a traditional engineering job would entail. And so I think if I could have gone back, I would have spent more time, and I would encourage you to, as students, to seek out these opportunities, things like the concrete toboggan, things like student groups and serving on student leadership like Saadiq. I think those are really the opportunities that are going to help to build your network, but also help give you experience in these things that aren't pounding on a calculator. And so I think yeah, if I would have gone back, there's a lot of overlooked opportunities that I think students don't really think about, which is technical societies. Even if you want to go into a technical job, there's a lot of technical societies that exist for engineers that kind of hits in on two fronts, where you get that technical side, but you also get that experience to network with engineers in the field, and also learn about board governance, about leadership, and seeking out these student opportunities for getting involved with industry. I think yeah, that's something that I'd encourage you as students or even new grads to seek that out and try to build your network that way.
Thank you. And what about you, Sarah?
So I think I kind of touched on it a bit, that I wish I was a little bit more involved. That's kind of been talked about. So I'll talk about some other stuff. I see Jenny put in the chat, like also exploring volunteering opportunities in the community. And that's absolutely something I 100% agree with. I volunteer a lot now and I absolutely love it. So if I could have started earlier, that would have been good. And then the other thing is not having such a closed mind. So when I was doing undergrad, my two least favorite things were statistics and coding, and now that's my job. And I love it now. But back then it was like statistics was like, you have a widget, and then the blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what's a widget? I don't care about widgets. I'm not going to use widgets. And then I just wrote the class off as not being useful to me in any way. And then later on, I'm like, oh, actually statistics are really cool and you can do a bunch of cool stuff with it. But now I have to teach myself because I didn't pay attention in undergrad. So things that you don't think are useful might be useful to you. So try and be more open about it. Although I was right about structures, I'm still salty I had to take structures. It was not useful.
I can kind of personally agree with that. Amelia?
Okay, I'm not 100% in agreement about that, but different opinions. Yeah, I feel like most of the stuff that I was planning on touching on has already been talked about, especially the getting involved. And I was going to say volunteering, because yeah, I do that now as well. Especially, I don't volunteer as much in engineering specific things, but just Habitat for Humanity, Canadian Blood Services, things that I am passionate about. I think is very rewarding. Not only is it something good to put on a resume, but it you feel better helping people and doing something that's meaningful. But yeah, for me, getting involved is definitely also something that was important. Too long, I missed too many years of doing fun and enjoyable things. And yes, focusing on your schoolwork is very important and it will take you places, but don't forget that it's also important to have something to talk about in your job interview that's not just school. So yeah, talking about concrete toboggan or intramural hockey or volunteering for ESSC, anything like that is really important as well. So that's my hot take.
Awesome. So now I have a few general questions here, and I'll ask about 2 or 3 of you, sort of depending on the length of the answer. But we'll start with Zion. How did you end up in the job that you have today?
Sure, I'll answer this. I feel like, again, I think Saadiq actually talked about a similar experience, but all of the jobs that I've gotten, even since undergrad in the summers and stuff, because I didn't do co-op, they've all been from, in one way or another, leveraging my network. So even in the summer of after first year, my brother-in-law's dad's former coworker's co-op student ended up doing him a favor and getting me an interview. And so I went to go interview at the structural engineering firm that was just a little tiny outfit that was run out of a house in Vancouver. And so when I interviewed there, I completely blew it. I didn't realize it was a structural firm, and I was talking about civil engineering and pipes and stuff. And then And they said, oh, I think you're in the wrong place. I think you're trying to find a civil engineering firm. This is a structural engineering firm. And so I figured I was going to get laughed out the door. And then, but the person who was interviewing me ended up leveraging his network to find me another company that would take me, or at least get me an interview, that was doing civil engineering, because it seemed like that's what I was interested in. And so that's how I ended up landing my first, not co-op job, but a summer job in engineering. And so after that, it was the same kind of idea. Every summer, I kind of looked within my own network. Sometimes it was friends, sometimes it was family. And then when I graduated Thurber engineering, I had actually never really heard of this company. But I had a good friend in undergrad who did a co-op term at Thurber, and he was saying that, oh, they actually do a lot of environmental, and you should think about reaching out to them. So he gave me the contact information for the manager there, and I reached out, and after a bit of persistent harassment, I ended up getting an interview there, got in the door, and have been there, getting close to 10 years now. So yeah, I think for myself, it was a lot of looking into my network and trying to leverage those relationships. I don't know that that's the best way or the only way, but yeah, that was my experience.
What about you, Amelia?
How I got into my job where I'm at now. I did a few different co-op terms, and I tried to have as diverse experience as possible. So yeah, I did water resources, and then I went to project management, construction kind of thing, and then I worked at ATCO and kind of a project management role as well. And when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do after I graduated, I realized that I really liked working for NHC. Why did I like that? Turns out that I like water and just what water does and how it acts, and I found that really interesting. But then I also really liked my geotech courses, and I found them just very interesting. Like, how can I put those two together? So I applied for jobs that were more tailings related, that were more dam related, because I was interested in that and just retaining water using mostly dirt. Yeah, so I ended up getting a job at CNRL and working up there for a while. Turns out I did not want to get stuck up in Fort Mac. I liked it for then, but I didn't want to get stuck there forever. So I was applying for jobs back in Edmonton. And then a contact that I had applied for a job for one of my co-op jobs, and I had gotten a response, and they offered me a job, and I didn't take it at TETRATECH back when I was in my undergrad. But then I was like, you know what, maybe they're still looking, maybe they're interested in E.I.T. So I reached out, and he's like, yeah, we'd love to have you. We'd like to have you then. We want to have you now, kind of thing. So keep those contacts for sure. And yeah, don't lose touch with anybody, because everybody is important and useful, and you can always reach out.
Cool, thank you. I wanted to save Jenny for last. 15 years of experience can lead to quite a juicy story. So how'd you end up in the job you have now?
So I had no connections for any of my co-ops. So I guess this could be an encouragement for people who don't have as much connections through families and whatnot. So all my co-op terms were through the co-op official recruitment process. I remember the first co-op round, after year 2 I was a mess. I remember being interviewed by Thurber and I think botching it very, very badly. And after that interview, it made me think about, what am I doing wrong? I'm pretty sure I won't be getting any offers. So after self-reflection and more practice, second round, I got a capital planning job with the town of Hinton. And then after that, co-op system again, got an Alberta infrastructure job, industrial hygiene stuff, and a bit of capital planning again, and asset assessments. And then the third job was EPCOR. And that was the first time it was like first round, first pick, 3 3 companies wanted me, and so it like really built my confidence after that. But you know, if you're a slow starter, it's okay, you can recover. So for EPCOR, it was I think I can barely remember. There's a lot of, I remember I was dealing with a lot of fecal coliform data and water quality, but it's been a while. And then after I graduated, so that co-op program really helped beef up my experience. And then after that, I applied for a hydrology internship job after university. It was just a mat leave cover off, so it was a year. Did fairly well there, and then another opening came up in industrial approvals under, so this is where I wrote the approval renewal for Albion Sands back in 2006, 7. I don't know. It's a blur. So industrial approvals, and I felt kind of jaded because I'm like, wow, oh, you know what? The session's recorded. But okay, even back in 2007, during the big oil and gas boom, I was thinking, I didn't come out of environmental engineering to do industrial approvals. Anyone can do industrial approvals that, you know, has a certain level of expertise. But I felt passionate about other things, being my mid-20s. I did a couple of stints with like international development through like really poorly funded internships through Canadian International Development Agency, spent half a year in Southeast Asia. Thought that's where I first encountered like public health. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the foundation of like environmental engineering. It was all about public health, right? Like getting sewage away from people and treating water and whatever. And I felt really inspired by like some of the techniques and some of the program, more of the softer people side of program planning for public health and wellness. So enrolled in the global health program at U of A. And then after that, like I was trying to get a health job and it was fairly hard. This is the first time then I had a personal connection. So one of my friends was going on mat leave at the city of Edmonton with waste services. And she says, oh, you know, maybe you could like apply for this job and see if you get in as a project engineer. So I applied, and because it was kind of, you know, temporary and people kind of knew me, or she put a good word for me. So I got in the door as a temp position for a project engineer. And then that slowly turned into more, you know, contract work after that period ended. And then a permanent position came up. But, you know, by that time, I'm like, I don't think construction management is my passion. And I know it's important, but I don't care about the welds or how big the bolts are, or, you know, I want to work with people. And then a job posting came up at Alberta Environment. It would be policies and regulations development under the Public Health Act. I was like, oh, this is amazing. And a friend who's not related to anything Alberta Health does says, oh, you should apply for this. And it was a bit of a stretch job position, right? Like a couple of pay grades than I would be thinking I would be qualified for. But you know what they say, you should apply for jobs where you're only, you know, qualified for 60%, and easier said than done, because I know now the job market is really, really hard, but nevertheless, it's okay to throw your hat into things where you think you don't meet the qualifications for. So I got into public health, and that was my first supervisorial role, and I was supervising PhDs and like master's level trained research scientists and policy analysts, and then that's where I found a niche of like, oh, I feel like I'm good at translating really technical information into plain language. So when they're, you know, doing policy analysis and recommendations and research, all these people with like very advanced degrees, like we had to tone it down and really package it. Any complicated issues, how can you sell it with 2 pages to the minister or the deputy minister of health, right? So that's where I found like, oh, I really like this. I like working with difficult information and really like distilling it down and helping people navigate the process from like this big hairy problem that we have to solve, may it be public health or whatever, and how do we navigate this political and policy development process to get it actually approved. But working for the province is hard. It's like a very bipartisan, it's a very partisan environment. It makes bureaucrats very risk adverse. So if some of your work items are not on the top of the agenda for the ministers and political leaders, then even important stuff could potentially be delayed or put off. So that was a bit demoralizing, and I felt like I had so much head knowledge from public health and public policy development. I really wanted to hone those skills. So then an energy transition policy job came up at the city, and it would have been a bit of a demotion. But I chose it because it was exciting, and it was when the province, the feds, and the city were all aligned on like clean energy, solar, energy efficiency. This was 2016 to just last year, right? So it was like the stars were aligned. There was so much awesome activity in that area, and it was like really exciting to be there and to actually feel validated that like, oh, okay, I'm not ineffective. It was just a bit of the work environment, and like in a different work environment, you can really flourish and really use the skills that you've been given. So that was really edifying for me to be at the city. And then since then, I've transitioned to waste services to do another kind of transformation project. All soft skills, all about like working with people, getting people excited, building their capacity to make a big change, doing continuous improvement. So I'm just so enamored by you all, because when I hear about like, wow, you do slope stabilization and hydrologic assessments and coding, whoosh, like I've become such a generalist, but I'm very proud of like the soft skills that I've been able to develop. So for all the engineers, like engineering students, if you feel like, oh, I'm still more, you don't see yourself in a technical job, I think this degree has really prepared you to do all sorts of interesting things that might not make you a stamping engineer.
Well, thank you very much. So next question, this is from the chat, and Sarah, I think you're a pretty good candidate for this. How important is field work when you were first starting?
It's an excellent question. So I'm going to take you on a journey with me. So my first co-op term was with Stantec doing a groundwater sampling, and when I got it, I thought it was my dream job because I was going to be outside, and like outside was cool, and I was going to be saving the environment and like Lorax, and it was going to be great. And then 4 months in, I realized I hate it. I hate outside. I hate bugs. I hate having to like navigate bathroom issues. I hate being hungry all the time. And so I learned, early on that field work was not my cup of tea. That being said, it is incredibly important to do, because the field work is, especially if you're in a tech, I think any role, honestly, because fieldwork is the basis for any major decisions. So at NHC, I have field crews who go out and get data for me, but because I understand how that data is collected, I can help either troubleshoot from the office, or I can flag things that are irregular and like really understand, like when they take these measurements, what do they represent, and what are some of the bounds of uncertainty, and how can I incorporate that uncertainty into my analysis and make sure I report, like, we did this method and this is the upsides of the method, this is the downsides of the method, so it's within the normal accuracy, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, long story short, fieldwork is incredibly important, but I hate
it. Very good answer. Saadiq, you've been sitting there for quite a long time. How important is fieldwork when you were first starting?
I'm not sure how to follow that answer up, but yeah, I would say fieldwork is incredibly important, especially I would say if you're working with projects that either you have internal like employees within your own company who are doing the work that you're trying to get out, or if you're working with contractors. I think you learn different things in the field than what you do in the office. And it helps to grow your soft skills in a different way. When you're at the office, you're working with, potentially other people who have engineering or other types of post-secondary education. And when you go out into the field, you're working with people who, when they turned 18 or 19, they started doing construction, or they started doing pipeline operations, or a number of other things. So it really helps to broaden your horizons and develop your soft skills in a different sort of way. You're not managing anybody, you're just interacting and building relationships. The other thing too that I think is overlooked is that when we're engineers or we're coming out of school or however much experience we have, I think sometimes we get into this pattern where we think we know a lot of information, which is not incorrect. We have a lot of knowledge and we want to use that knowledge to the best of our abilities. But when you interact with these people that are in the field, they have a substantial amount of knowledge that you don't. And interacting with them and building those relationships means that you can grab some of that information and hopefully capture that and roll that into the information that you have. So kind of similar to Sarah, working with the field staff at ATCO, that helps us better prepare our work packages or consider different things that we normally wouldn't have. Because if you're just sitting in the office all day and not actually looking at site conditions, you know, something's going to pop up on your project, boom, you have a change order for however many $1,000, which totally throws your project off. So to me, like, I'm not advocating for people to, you know, to do these like crazy rotations in Fort Mac. I never wanted to do that. I never did do that. I'm very, very thankful that I never did that. So I maybe, hopefully I'm not alone, because I thought I heard Amelia say that she doesn't really like doing the Fort Mac thing. But I think that as much as possible, I would say get out into the field early and learn a lot of those things that those field operators and field staff, that knowledge that they can impart to you. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Jenny, you followed the question on fieldwork in the chat with still not very safe. Could you talk about the safety of fieldwork?
That was actually from a way previous question on GNCTR on the Great Northern Concrete Toboggan Race.
Okay. I guess that question can be answered later then.
I agree with everything that's been said about fieldwork, especially if you're an engineer that's doing some big changes in processes or trying to improve things. Nobody likes having changes be done to them. And field staff don't want changes being done to them. And so whatever you can do to build rapport, to understand, you'll make changes of it'll make implementing go a lot smoother, because you've accounted for their feedback and it's been participatory, and they see why some things might be different, and you also have opportunity to adjust and course correct if your assumptions are wrong. So it's really important to compare notes and do field visits and understand your operational staff's needs.
Cool, thank you. And Zion, what's the most memorable project that you've been involved with? One that you still are like, yeah, you know what, I was involved with that. Still talk about it.
Well, I guess a couple come to mind for very different reasons. One was a project that I worked on really early in my career. That was a big site remediation. Actually, our client was ATCO. And it was up in Fort Chipewyan, which is a really far north hamlet in Alberta. In fact, it's one of the oldest settlements in all of Canada, from what I understand. But that was a really cool project because it was one of the first ones where I was kind of left alone to be the engineer on site, which was really daunting. I think I was maybe 22 or 23 at the time, and barely out of school, really didn't have any experience, but I was also at the lowest part of the totem pole, so I didn't get to decide where I'm working on projects. So I got sent up there, and I was there for a couple of months, and it was a really cool experience because I think that's when I got to learn a lot about how to interact with contractors to, get them to do things that you need them to do. And, your persuasion skills kind of improve, and being left to work very independently and being responsible for, prioritizing different tasks throughout the day, and really making sure that, things are still working out there. I think that was a great experience in that the location was very unique, but also in the work that I was doing in the time that I was doing it was, I feel like, very important and quite substantial for my career and my own development. The other project that was memorable would be working on the Royal Alberta Museum, where we're doing a big remediation as well, where they, there's a lot of history in downtown Edmonton, and we got to work on, I guess, trying to discover some of that history and also deal with some of the repercussions of the decisions that were made back then. So we're dealing with old dry cleaners and old service stations and things that were, buried beneath the ground several hundred feet, and that came back to haunt the developers that wanted to build a museum on top. So that one was really cool in that we're dealing with, I guess, so many years of history and also a really prominent structure that's going up, an institution that's going to be really important to the city, right in the middle of downtown. And so that one was really fun in that it was kind of the opposite of Fort Chip, where we're going downtown every day for work instead of going up north in a tiny hamlet. So yeah, I think the work that I did there and just the prominence of the project was really memorable.
Thank you. Amelia, I know you're still a young engineer, but is there any really memorable projects that you've been on?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few. Maybe it's because it's fresh in my mind, but there is a project that I'm kind of working on now and have been for the past few months. It's a slope stability project along the North Saskatchewan River. And that is one of the projects I get to do a lot of field work for. And I'm constantly on site and checking things out. We had actually a drilling program that we completed right along the bench of the North Saskatchewan River, which was a very interesting. It's like, I think there was like 20 meters. We had to winch a rig down, and like figuring out those kind of things and how to make that work has been really interesting. And now figuring out a solution to prevent the river from continually eroding the bank until everything falls in has been very interesting and rewarding. Yeah. So that's probably been my favorite project so far.
There's a further question on that, if you're okay to answer. How responsive were the engineers on site to your inputs and everything?
That was actually a little bit concerning when I first got there, because they're not geotechnical engineers. They're very much process engineers, or there's a lot of operations staff. So when I first got there and took a look at it, and kind of they're asking me all these questions, and what do you do here? Like, what would you do? What's your solution, kind of thing? I'm like, I need to like think about it, and I need to talk to people and look at it, because you're not an expert in the first 2 years of your graduating. I'm not an expert by any means. So first going on site with like no prep and no kind of knowledge on the site was a bit intense. But so every time I go out there, I have to be prepared for those questions and have answers for those questions, because the client is looking for a solution, and they have contacted you to get that solution. And so they want your input, and they want it right now. So I would say they were very responsive. So yeah, I just had to be very prepared, and don't be afraid to ask questions or say, I need to think about this. I need to look at some data. I need to get back to you later, kind of thing. If you're not sure, rather than say, oh, I think we need to do this, and it's a multi-million-dollar idea that might not work at all. So yeah.
That's really good advice, especially to a lot of people in the crowd here. And just going back to the last question, what's the most memorable project you've been involved with, Sarah?
There's a couple. I think my favorite project that I've been involved with is I got to make a hydrologic model of the entire Okanagan River Basin for flood prediction. And the interesting thing about that is it's so regulated. There's so many dams that you have to figure out how to code what a person would do into the computer, so the computer will do what the person will do in a flood. And none of the dams have like emergency response plans, which seemed a little sketchy to me. So you're just like, the operator's like, oh, well, when it gets high, just like let the water out. And you're like, cool, how do you put that into a model? So it was a lot of fun working with like some of these older dam operators to try and like translate what they were doing into the model. And then the model actually performed really, really well, and we were in the news, and they're going to be able to do some like flood protection measures. We ran 50 different climate ensembles for, I think, up until the year 2100. So it was like a lot of data. And it was a really cool project.
Cool. And just as a general question to all you guys, would you guys like to go on a 5-minute break? Are you guys, would that be something you guys are interested in, or are you guys good to keep going? Don't feel like you have to keep going right now.
I would love to hear questions from the audience members, and I think some of them might be a bit timid, and so ask away. Like, this is what we're here for, right? So if there's some questions and discussions that you just haven't heard but you're dying to hear from, please type.
Yeah, like they can type in questions. It's not like muted or anything for them.
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, I believe they can ask questions in the chat. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't need to take a break. We can just keep going, I think. But
all right, I'll keep Joey tasked on seeing the chat.
I think he posted a question right at the end of the chat. So
find it here. All right, so yeah, how would you advise students to network with limited events available due to COVID? Is there any advice that you give to new grads who are looking for a job? I'll just ask anybody to chime in here if you have an idea.
I have an idea.
Go ahead, Sarah.
This is where I can shamelessly plug my organization. So I am the co-founder of this group called STEM Sisters, and it's open to everyone. So gentlemen, please come hang out with us. We're super cool. But the whole point is to create this like organic community to support women in male-dominated fields, and we do a lot of really fun events. So we do like these trivia nights. We're gonna have one coming up in February, and like if the group's pretty small, so we like go around and say, you know, like, oh, this is what I do, this is what I do, and in a couple of events, people have been like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And someone's been like, oh, well, I know so-and-so who's like kind of looking for someone in your position. And I don't know if like a job came out of it, but that's still like a connection that you wouldn't have made before. So looking for like these casual events, I think is a really good way. I would also say for looking for new grads looking for a job, I think LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful tool. I don't think you need to throw your resume at people. I think you should try and organically build a network. So if you see someone who has a really cool job, just reach out to them and be like, hey, I really like what you're doing. How did you get there? Like, what experience would you recommend? Are there any courses you think I should take? And as long as you have, you know, like Jane Doe currently working from employment, if they want your resume, they'll ask, and it's less aggressive than being like, please give me a job. And the worst thing that can happen is they ignore you. And the best thing that can happen is maybe they'll like help you on a stepping stone to like something that you want. And that's what I have.
Just to build on that, Jake, just to jump in here. I think what Sarah said that's incredibly valuable. I think LinkedIn and just building your network that way, I think is incredibly important. And just, not throwing, like she said, not throwing your resume at people, but just looking to gain information and gain knowledge and figure out what skills are important to do the job that they're doing or the job that you potentially want to do is incredibly valuable. So LinkedIn, I think, is a great way to do that for sure.
All right. Jenny, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, there's also some more formal networking events, right? Like if Canadian Society for Civil Engineers are still doing those, there's also a variety of like associations and networks that have a young professionals chapter. So, you know, I worked in green buildings and sustainability for a while, but like the Canadian Green Building Council always has young networking events. So if you're sustainability minded and you're kind of wanting to get more into like that field, just even if you haven't committed, just check them out. There's if you're more in oil and gas or other types of energy, there's like a young energy professionals chapter through the Canadian Council for Energy something something. Like I remembered kind of one guy kind of promoting it a while ago at another ENGIAC event. And so there's a myriad of like nonprofit or industrial associations that are potentially somewhat related to some things that you might be interested in, even if it's like not directly engineering related, but something along the lines of sustainability, clean tech. Like right now is a really good time, right? There's going to be tons of federal and provincial funding probably related to emissions reduction, decarbonization. And so if you haven't really poked into that, like just kind of follow where some of the grants and some of the economic development activities might be going, and just see which companies are involved with that and which associations. In addition to the informal stuff that Sarah mentioned.
Cool, thank you. And Zion, I know you're both a geotech and environmental engineer. What exactly do you do on a day-to-day basis? It's not the most traditional path that lots of students would think of taking. So could you go through your day-to-day?
Sure. Yeah, I think my day-to-day has shifted quite a bit over the years. I think definitely when I first started, it was a little bit of what Sarah was talking about in her time at Stantec. It's some groundwater sampling and soil sampling, and definitely within those first couple of years at the job, is a lot of the field work where you're learning how the data is collected. Going from there, it became more about trying to collect that data and interpret it so that it becomes a meaningful product for our client. So whether that means a technical report, a technical memo, a phone call or an email, something that answers the questions that you've been presented with and why they hired an environmental professional. So the geotechnical side of that is very much what I imagine Amelia's doing day to day. So Thurber, when I first started there, they take a lot of pride in wanting to get people cross-trained in the various disciplines that they specialize in. So geotechnical engineering is one of their primary groups, I guess, or specialties. So I did a lot of geotechnical investigations, foundation investigations, construction monitoring, a lot of things like that. So I guess a big geotechnical project that I worked on was doing instrumentation for the LRT that went in the tunnel underneath Churchill Station over to Epcot Tower, I think. So that's one that runs downtown. So we did a lot of instrumentation where we were monitoring the settlement above the tunnel walls as they're boring it. So that would entail, being out in the field and building the instruments for contractors to install. And today, a lot of, like I mentioned before, I do primarily project management. So I have folks that go out in the field to collect that data, which is, to answer a previous question, where I find, having the field work under my belt was very valuable, because now I understand, I think Sarah mentioned it, like some of the limitations of the different methods that you might use to collect that data, what you can do with that. And I think we all talked about in the beginning where, you don't get all the information now that you're in the workforce, but a lot of the reasons why information might be incomplete is because it's at that data collection phase, and to understand some of the methodology that gets applied in the field and how you can mitigate that to improve, data integrity and improve methods, I think that just allows you to do your job better as someone who needs good data. So, so yeah, what I do now, I'm managing folks in the field, offering training and mentorship here and there for junior engineers and technologists, and then writing a lot of emails and reports, and it's a lot of communications now, which is just trying to get the information out there. So.
And Sarah, what's your day like?
So it's going to sound boring because as I mentioned before, I hate being outside. So I stay and do stuff on my computer. I find it so funny that Jenny's like, I like the people side and managing people and all that stuff. And I'm just like the polar opposite. Just like, leave me alone, let me build my models, and then someone can communicate that to other people. So day to day, I usually do a lot of project engineering. So it's a lot of data analysis, modeling, technical report writing. I write a lot of internal memos to explain to project managers what I did so that they can better make it less technical for our clients. Although I'm starting to get better at less technical writing and just being able to directly write reports that go to clients. It's a really hard skill to like mad respect to Jenny who can do that, because I was just like, this is what I did. And then you're like, okay, but then explain it to someone who doesn't know what any of those words mean. And you're like, I don't really know how to do that. So that's something I'm trying to develop. And it is a skill. It doesn't come easy to me. So yeah, basically my day to day is a lot of technical work. There are engineers. So I think at NHC, because we're a small company, everyone kind of has to do a little bit of everything. So I do a lot of my own GIS work. I do a lot of my own CAD work. And then we'll have like the people who are like the CAD specialists and the GIS specialists like clean it up for report writing, but I do a lot of it on my own for analysis. Other people in our company for like day-to-day stuff, like manage field staff, do field work, do the project management side of things. So I think depending on the day and depending on the person, like your day-to-day will change, but my favorite days are where I can just sit and make models.
I didn't think that was boring at all, so thank you. And this is a little bit of a more difficult question to answer, so I'll leave it open to anybody who has an answer. But is it possible to leave your degree discipline and work in a different field, say maybe your geotech and go to structural, or even like your environmental and go to mechie, something like that?
Absolutely. And I can't speak to the design aspect, so I don't think that you can be a super qualified geotechnical engineer and then in a year say, oh, now I'm going to do building science and HVAC designs for green buildings. Like that would not happen overnight. But if you are more in a project management type of role, yes, those are very transferable skills. You can work one day for a green building company, you can work the next day for a geotechnical company. You could be at a large multidisciplinary company or a public sector agency and kind of go anywhere you want. I think project management skills and systematic problem solving skills apply not just to engineering, but if you're a really strong project manager, good with data, really care about evidence and data informed decision making, you can carry that into healthcare, you can carry that into education, into social programming, and some of those non-traditional areas will be just blown away with what can be done when you kind of use data-driven and evidence-based methods to get to policy decisions and options analysis. So yeah, absolutely.
Just to build on that a little bit, maybe a little bit of a personal anecdote. One of my cousins actually came to the U of A and did mechanical engineering traditional program. And in the summer times, his dad used to work at TransAlta, so he used to work summers at TransAlta. When he finished school, he went back to TransAlta for a couple of years and he just figured out that engineering is not what he wanted to do. But the skills that he learned while he was in engineering allowed him to do a myriad of other things. So the first thing he did was he actually went to Toronto and started working for a healthcare startup, and he was doing I think he was a data analyst for them. And now I think he's still based out of Toronto, but he's supposed to be moving to New York whenever COVID restrictions are lifted. But he's going there to work for Bloomberg Media in their data department. So I think maybe the answers, the way Jenny and I are answering them, may be a little bit more focused on what you can do with your engineering degree outside of engineering. But I don't necessarily think that that's like there's any limitation necessarily for you to transfer from one kind of stream, quote unquote, to a different stream, as long as you spend enough time to learn and get the experience to work in that area.
Yeah, I actually have a coworker who did mechanical engineering, but focused on the fluid side, so like pressure flow. And then she came and worked for us. And I mean, waters, fluids, they act the same. She had to learn a couple of things, but like open water and overland channel flow. But she's doing a lot of, she had done some like 3D mesh modeling that was really applicable to some of our CFD modeling. So she's made that transition into our line of work. And so she's like working on understanding maybe some of the theory behind why water does the way like water does things, but she definitely understands like how to build a 3D mesh model. And so there are transferable skills between disciplines that it does happen.
Cool, thank you. Saadiq, you said that you had kind of a lower GPA when you graduated. Be honest, do employers really care about your GPA?
I think that's a very loaded question. And so I think the answer is yes and no. I really think it depends on what type of work you want to do and what company you want to end up in. So I have no idea if this is actually true or not, but I did hear when I was coming out of school that if you wanted to apply to Shell, you had to have a certain GPA. If you didn't have that GPA, don't even bother applying, because that's the first thing that they look at. So yeah, it really depends on the type of work you're going to be doing and what company you're going to be doing it with. I was very lucky in that I had I think I'm the only panelist that didn't have any engineering work experience when I finished school, whether that was through summer programs or through the co-op program. So I really had to leverage my network to try to find something, but I got a lot of skills during my time at the U of A, which really helped to kind of further my career that way. So I would say have a reasonably good GPA. Like, don't don't do the C's get degrees type thing. Don't ride that wave. But make sure that you spend time building those other skills, like Zion said, and like some of the other panelists have said. Build those soft skills, especially I would say in my experience, when you start to kind of your seniority starts to increase and you start to get into management roles, you may not be working in as much of a technical environment, but you are going to be using a lot of those soft people skills to be able to manage the people that are underneath you, quote unquote, because just like, the people that like the students that we're talking to, eventually you're going to be in our shoes and eventually you're going to be managing people as well. So it's just kind of it's a cycle. So make sure you develop those soft skills, but also don't neglect your academics. Like, make sure that if you're not learning the material, just try to learn how to learn. It's a really weird thing to say, but when you get into the real world, quote unquote, outside of school, you're going to have to learn tons of different things that were not covered in your, NV 400 or whatever class you took in school. Like, those are really critical things that and it falls outside of engineering just as much as it is for your day-to-day life. Learning how to learn, building that network, and being able to problem solve and time manage well. Those are the areas that I would focus on, and by extension, that means doing reasonably okay in school. So,
build off of that question from the chat. How would any of you guys prioritize your GPA if you're a student again? For anyone.
50-50.
I think it like Saadiq was saying, it depends on what you want to do. GPA will matter if you want to do, like a postgraduate degree, like if that's something you're interested in. And maybe it's not something, like I didn't even really think about grad school until I was in 4th year. So thankfully I did have a competitive GPA to get into a master's program, but that is something that maybe you don't want to close that door. That being said, I think work-life balance, I think it's like one of my 3 things. It's not just a buzzword, and that applies to school as well. So I think it's all about balancing it, and not losing opportunities because you're focusing on one thing too much. So I think, like I said, if I went back, I'd probably try and do more extracurricular activities just to become a more well-rounded individual. I think that's what it all comes down to, is like having those soft skills, but also having, and I don't even know if it comes down to GPA, because like some people don't test well, but like being able to like understand the material and like it just be a sound engineer, like competent, I would say.
I mean, for most people in the real world, I mean, I'm doing you want to be a postdoc or a professor by 28, there's a point of diminishing value for return. So if you're too much of a slacker, you get into the real world, your deliverables aren't going to be good. People will know. You're expected to absorb a lot of information, and really use that problem solving skill. So if you're not in the rhythm of like being able to absorb information, distill it, interpret it, analyze it, and give a really strong deliverable, it might show up. And everyone has worked with subcontractors or consultants that it's like, oh, you're trying to do the bare minimum amount of work to get paid. And I don't know if it's because you are super busy and maybe you think that we're not doing QA/QC enough, or if it's other reasons, but like don't be like that consultant. And it's like a super waste of time. But anyways, in real life, it's not about oh, I'm going to get 99% on this, or I have to get 100% on this. It's like, no, when do you get to that point where the deliverable is good? It will meet the needs of your client and you feel proud of it. So you don't want to give an A in the real world. Also, you don't want to give an A effort to everything, because then you won't be able to really spend enough time doing the A effort things. So like, I read a Harvard Business Review about A level effort, B level effort, C level effort. In the real world, some tasks are like, you need to get it done, but you can't spend A effort on everything. You can't spend A effort on a C effort item. So over time, you'll start being able to better prioritize your time, but you need to start filtering and understanding that it's not about 100%, but it's about understanding what takes a lot of effort and proactive planning and dedicated time to think things through, and what is just, this is on my checklist, I just have to get it done, and the wisdom and discernment to know the gradation of those tasks. I haven't fussed about my GPA in so long that I can't answer this question exactly as it's posed, but
that is A-okay. That's very good advice. Thank you. Question from the chat here. To anybody who's involved in work outside of job, such as volunteering, sitting on boards, running STEM Sisters, NGAC, how do you find out about these opportunities? Are extracurriculars still important after exiting school?
I might speak to this. I guess it's a little bit relevant. So how I found out about groups like NGAC is kind of by accident. I was attending a training session for, I think it was a leadership training put on by APEGA, and one of the other attendees, whom I met through someone else that I knew at the event. She was actually the chair of NJAC, and during one of the breaks, we ended up talking about what NJAC was about, what they're trying to do, and it, I guess their vision and their purpose really resonated with me, and I thought it was a very valuable cause. So I followed up after that event and ended up attending more of their meetings, getting involved in some of their opportunities, and it started to snowball from there until now that I'm in her position as the chair. So I guess how important are extracurriculars? I think they should still serve a similar purpose in that it's something that you're passionate about or something that you believe in, that it's a cause that you want to further and help promote. But I think when you're at school, it may mean scholarship opportunities or might pad your resume. I think for me now, a lot of the extracurriculars, I think for everyone on the panel and probably for a lot of the students here, you can probably understand that as you're getting older, your time is more valuable, and where you spend that time, you end up having to be a little more, I guess, choosy with what you end up deciding to spend, an hour a week, a couple hours a week. And so it now has to be something that you enjoy or something that you're passionate about or something that gives you some joy. And so I think that's really the driver for me in any of the extracurriculars, if you want to call it, any of the panels or boards or councils that I serve on. So in addition to that, I serve as secretary for the Geotechnical Society of Edmonton, and that's one where I got involved in because I attended quite a few of their presentations, and I really loved a lot of the technical talks that we were getting from it, and got involved that way. So yeah, I'd encourage you to make it a habit almost from undergrad. Just find things that you really enjoy and are passionate about, and spend some time doing it.
Thank you. And Amelia, I noticed you haven't spoken a lot lately. I just wanted to have you tackle this question because I think it would be very relatable to everyone else. So again, being a new engineer, what has been your biggest challenge from the pandemic, and how do you stay motivated in such uncertain times?
That's tough because I've been really lucky. Some of you may know, most of you probably, being a consulting engineer, we kind of have our, however we're charged out at, and being a junior engineer, you're kind of charged out at the lowest price, basically. So that means that people want to use you because you're cheap. But so that has meant that I've been able to get on a variety of different projects because people want to use you. So that means I've been able to stay interested because I've just been doing things that I never thought I would do. I went to school for geotechnical engineering, and now I was just on a boat doing a bathymetric survey, or I was flying a drone for a couple weeks. You stay interested based on kind of the work that you have. So asking, if you find something you're interested in at your job, maybe ask, I love doing that. If ever something like that comes up again, throw it my way. I'm interested. And this is something I feel, I'm passionate about and I like to do. And I've definitely told that to my supervisor, anything water comes up, throw it my way. I like water and dirt. So yeah. But it is tough in COVID when you're working from home and you're isolated. And I lived alone for a while, so it was hard to kind of get up and you have a report to do, but you just don't want to, kind of thing. It's tough to stay motivated that way, but setting deadlines for yourself and setting kind of achievable goals is very important because these things are important. You need to get them out. You have a client and they depend on you, and they expect the product that they're paying for, and they expect it to be a good product. So finding a way to stay motivated is tough, but yeah, set goals and timelines, and it's achievable.
That's actually really good advice there. So question from the chat, but I'm just gonna combine it with another question I have here. So Jenny, I think you can speak on this pretty well, but how do you set yourself apart to employers on your cover letter and resume? Should a new grad invest time in getting certifications while they're searching for jobs? What do you think? Seeing as you're able to apply to a job that you think you were 60% qualified
This
for.
is so hard because I have to put on my hat of like, how do you do a resume when you're so I think how to make it stand out is really customizing that cover letter, really showing some interest and passion for that job, even if it's a bit hard. I know, even if you're just doing your like 50th letter, you have to just, something has to catch the reader, because the reader really is only, the first scan is probably just 30 seconds. So whatever you can do to show that like, oh, they know what this job is about. Try to make that connection. If you do have some good co-op experiences, see if you can somehow frame it in a way where it's not just what you did, but what that outcome might have been. So if you were doing some preliminary cost benefit analysis, can you say like that the outcome is, you helped highlight the investments or the capital projects that had a payback of less than 10 years to inform the capital planning. So like not just the what, but the why. Why was that important? How did it help your company or that project? How did you help your prof? That might stand out. Instead of just like a bunch of verbiage of task, highlight what did you achieve in that role. I like the highlights, like the summary of qualifications up front, like just 4 to 6 bullets of like, this is where you want to highlight, I guess, your super high GPA, that you were president of so-and-so club maybe. And then soft skills are important. So if that job posting said, I need a bridge builder, I need a systems thinker, even if you're like, I don't know what they mean, put it down and then look into it once you get the interview. And you're not necessarily lying, but it's just you're showing that you know what they're trying to look for, and you bothered to like plunk out some of the attributes that you think you need. I hope that helps.
Jake, if I can, I think Sarah wants to jump in, so I'll let Sarah jump in first, then I'll come in after her if that's okay.
Oh, thanks. Mine was just a small thing of just like, can you make sure your grammar and spelling is correct? Like it just shows like an attention to detail in that you're like, you care about the product you're putting out. That's just, yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Wait, spacing too. Yeah.
And that. Yeah. Know the difference between then and that.
Use that engineering English course to your advantage. But yeah, like Jenny said, do your research. Make sure you know about the company that you're applying to. And maybe this is just my approach when I'm looking at resumes, and take that with a grain of salt, because a lot of the resumes I look at are for co-op student positions. But as soon as I see that, a student meets a minimum basic qualification that I want, I actually go and look at their hobbies or their extracurriculars, or kind of what makes the person interesting. And that isn't to say, list everything, because I've also had some resumes that are 4 pages long when they're like a 3rd-year engineering student, and I don't know what I would fill 4 pages of a resume with. But yeah, I would say, like, just like Jenny said, you want to be able to hook the people with 1 or 2 things that will, you want to be memorable with that. And kind of tying this back to something that we were talking about earlier about networking is, even when you're doing informal networking, you still want to be doing your research. You still want to structure that networking in a very specific way, because if you're just going into a coffee with somebody and just firing 1,000 questions at them, it might be better if you structure it with 2 or 3 or 4 questions that are very pointed, that you want to get really solid information. and that's where you build a good solid connection with that person, instead of just firing questions left, right, and center. Just make sure that, and with everything, it's just about creating that connection and just kind of sparking that connection. So sorry to get a little bit cheesy with that spark piece, but yeah.
Well, it's not cheesy, it's essential. Like what you said about building the connection, and you have to show interest in that human being. They're not a thing to you, they're not just their company. It's that you've like shown that there's something about what they do or who they are, some of their priorities that their company is known for, that has like sparked something in you, right? And built, and it has to be authentic. You know, it doesn't have to be super deep, but it has to be authentic in showing interest.
Cool, thank you. And we're just running here, and I want to leave some time for networking. So I want to ask all of you guys, and I'll start off with Zion. What piece of advice would you want to leave with us?
No, I'll be honest, I have to scroll down and see what I originally put.
If you'd like.
Oh, no. So I think, no, I think we talked about it in a few of the earlier questions, but one thing that I found just incredibly important, and I made it really well known because it was so crucial to me in getting all my jobs, was, I guess, leveraging your network, but also committing time to building that network. I think a lot of people also, view networking as this really formal thing. I think you'd be surprised what kind of influence you have on people that you meet that you just don't know or have no idea about. I think so many things have come out of people in my network who, I didn't go out there looking for a job. I didn't go out there trying to get information or trying to, prepare for something in the future to draw on. I think it was just people that you had an impression on, and someone that, I think, I can't remember who, but someone here, ended up getting a job from, a job offer that they turned down in the past. I think it was Amelia, right? And so I think those types of connections are just as important to building your network. And it shouldn't be this big formal thing that is so intimidating. I think a lot of people do get intimidated when they hear, oh, there's a networking event, you have to go out there, shake a bunch of hands, exchange business cards. But I think just in your day-to-day, even your classmates and your profs that you're communicating with, all of these people are people in your circle that you're potentially having an influence on and making an impression. So I would say, I guess, don't neglect your network.
Thank you very much. And Amelia?
I know Saadiq touched on it a bit, but it was one of my 3 big things that I want to leave you with is, don't think that just because you have an engineering degree that you know everything or you're the expert, because there are going to be people, especially people in the field, that I have learned so much from, that have so much information that, like, it is just gold that I don't think I would have ever learned, like, behind a computer. Just one conversation with them was amazing. So don't treat people as if they're lesser than just because they're not an engineer, or that they can't problem solve the way we can, or they don't know what they're talking about, because some people know better. And just stay humble and listen to people who have something to say about it.
Really great advice. Saadiq?
I don't really have too much to add. Zion and Amelia both made some really great points. I would say maybe one thing that we kind of talked about this is be flexible. I think when you finish your first year of university, as hopefully a lot of you have, you go and you pick a specific stream, but that doesn't mean that you're tied to that one specific stream, or that you're not picking that and then your whole life is planned ahead of you. Take the experiences as they come. Like Zion said, maybe don't overlook those opportunities because every opportunity provides some sort of value. You want to be selective about the opportunities you pick, because your time is valuable, but the things you're going to be learning from those opportunities are crucial. And with kind of network building, you really don't know what's going to create that spark. Providing another personal anecdote, the way the process works at ATCO is we had 2 interviews to hire for permanent positions. And the second interview, all I spent talking, but the entire interview was talking to the guy about football. That's all. We didn't talk about engineering. We didn't talk about the company. We didn't talk about any of that stuff. We just talked about things that we shared a common interest in. And that's it. That's the essence of building relationships and networking with people, is just finding common ground and building on that. So a couple things, just be flexible and build your network and create those relationships. Like we throw these buzzwords around a lot, like leverage your network and all these other things. They're just buzzwords that they make it your own. Do it your own way. You don't have to. There's no cookie cutter method to doing this. And just enjoy yourselves. You're young people. Have fun.
Thank you. Very, very, very. And Sarah.
I think the one thing that I wanted to talk about that I guess we didn't really get to, but the conversation was really good, was just that there's no one path to success. I think like a lot of the previous generations is like you go to university, you get a job, you get married, you have a house, you have kids. And then that's how you're successful. And I feel like now success is what you want it to be. There's no one time you're successful. There's no one marker that says you're successful. Everyone's going to fail, and that's okay. And it's just a path on your journey. Like one small stumble is okay. And you might not know where you're going to go. I kind of took a roundabout route to where I am today, and I'm very happy about it. And I think I'm successful, but other people might not think so. And so as long as like you check in with yourself and that you're happy and you continue to improve upon yourself, I think that you should just like tune out the outside voices and let you decide what like success looks like for you.
Awesome. And last but not least, Jenny.
It's not because you think I'm the most sage-like, because I'm not. I'm just really stunned and like pleased to be with my fellow panelists, and I don't think I was as wise. And I will never do design engineering like you all. To answer that question about how do you stay motivated right now, and just putting myself in someone else's shoes of like the current job market and some of the difficulties that are in the world right now. So I think it's really important to take care of yourself and invest in your friendships and your family members as much as possible. Like continue to build your social circle and a group of supporting individuals that you can mutually support and build up. And I think one way to stay motivated when you're feeling down or when you might be unemployed right now is to figure out how to volunteer, how to access time limited practicum opportunities, but especially the volunteering, because I think if you're like helping to invest and maybe build up other people or build up other groups, it helps you to like it's a way to be distracted, but it's also a way to like see the bigger picture, to support others and to build empathy, but as well opportunities to network and build some real connections that could lead to some like future opportunities that you didn't think you would have.
And right before we leave to the networking expo event here, I just want to thank all of the panelists. So Saadiq, Zion, Sarah, Jenny, and Amelia. I think you guys all did an incredible job, and thank you very much for coming and giving us your wisdom. And thank you to all the students for sitting and listening and asking questions. And thank you, NGAC, ESS, and TD Insurance for putting on the event. And as I said, I really encourage you to go to the networking and check out the expo. There's plenty of more to do tonight. So yeah, thank you very much. And go on over.